In this video, we're going to learn how to change decimals to fractions or mixed numbers and vice versa on the calculator. So first, in these first three examples, we are given decimals and we're going to change them to simplified fractions or mixed numbers. So this first one is 6/10. That's how we would say 0.6 using a word name. So it also means 6/10. This is not simplified, so I'm going to just put in 0.6 and then I'm going to use this button and the calculator will change it to a fraction for me and simplify it. So 6/10 is equivalent to 3/5. So 3/5 would be our final answer because we were asked for a simplified fraction. Now let's look at 1.15. Well, since this is bigger than 1, I know we're going to use a mixed number, and the whole number part is 1. Now I need to write 0.15 or 15/100ths as a simplified fraction. So I'm just going to put the whole thing in the calculator. I'm going to ask the calculator to change it to a fraction, and notice it gives me an improper fraction, which would be okay except it asks for a mixed number. Actually, it says to a simplified fraction or mixed number, so we could even give the improper fraction also. And now to change this to a mixed number, I'm going to hit second and this button, and we get 1 and 3/20. Now looking at this next number, this would read, so this is the tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths place. So this would read 564 10,000ths, or 564/10,000. Now the problem here is we're going to go ahead and punch this in and see what happens. 0.0564. Ask it to change it to a fraction, and it still has a decimal. I'll try it again, and the calculator refuses. So sometimes when the decimals go out too far, the calculator won't change it to a fraction for you. So we have this as a fraction, but we don't have this as a simplified fraction. So a nice thing about powers of 10, which decimals denominators will always be, is they're only divisible by 2 or 5, because 10 is 2 times 5, meaning the only prime numbers they're divisible by is 2 and 5. So to simplify this, I'm still going to use the calculator a little bit. I see that they're both even, so I'm going to divide the numerator by 2, and we get 282. And I know that dividing 10,000 by 2 gives me 5,000. And you can do that on your calculator if you'd like. 282 is still even, so is this. So we're going to divide by 2 again. And now I have 141 and 5,000 divided by 2, which you can do on your calculator, is 2,500. So I know I've simplified this completely because the denominator is only divisible by the prime numbers 2 and 5. 141 is not even. It doesn't end in a 5, so it's not divisible by 2 and 5. And just to check to make sure I got this right, I'm going to divide 141 by 2,500. And if I simplified this correctly, it should equal this. And notice we still get 0.0564. Still doesn't want to change it to a fraction for us though. So now we're done. So when you have more than a couple of decimals, sometimes you'll have to do a little work by hand, but you can use the calculator as an aid. Let's look at the next slide. Now we're going to write these fractions as decimals. So this is pretty straightforward. For 3/4, I'm going to start with the fraction form, punch it in, and ask it to change it to a decimal and hit enter. So we have 0.75. And lots of times we put the 0 in front of it just to make that decimal more apparent. Now for B, 52/10, or 52/10, I know this is going to be a mixed number since 52, or it's going to be larger than 1, since 52 is greater than 10. So I'll put 52/10. Oh, sometimes you forget those arrows. Let me delete that. Arrow outside, and now I'm going to ask it to change it to a decimal, and we get 5.2. The next one we have is 1/3. Ask it to change it to a decimal, and this is what we call a repeating decimal. So this is 0.333333. These threes actually go on forever and ever, but the calculator is just showing us, I think, the first 10 or so decimal places. So notice the directions said round to the nearest hundredth as appropriate. Well, in this case, it's appropriate to round because we have a repeating decimal and we can't write this all out. So we're going to round to the nearest hundredth, which would be 0.33. So this is the thousandths place. It's less than 5, so I would not add 1 to this 3, and I drop the rest of the numbers. Last one, 10 3/7. Well, we know it's going to be 10 point something. Okay, we just need to write the 3/7 as a decimal. But again, I'm just going to start with the whole thing. Put in my 10 3/7. Ask the calculator to change it to a decimal, and there I go. Now, notice this decimal doesn't seem to be repeating in any pattern I can see. It actually, I'm pretty sure this does repeat. I think this 3 is actually rounded from another repeat of 285714. Regardless, when it doesn't terminate with in your window, meaning it just stops with less than the full span of numbers, you're going to round to the nearest hundredths place. So in the thousandths place, there's an 8, so I'm going to round this up to a 3. So we have 10.43.